I know that you mostly didn't expect it, but here it is, the second part of Pumpkin Night manga. From my favorite thrash, Case Masaya Hakazona, drawn by the talented, albeit a little perverted hands of Taniguchi Saima. The story is about the place of a girl with a pumpkin mask on her head who was first severely bullied. Classmates, and then put her in a mental hospital, from which she safely escaped to cut the offender's vinaigrette. Now, I will briefly tell you about what happened in the previous part, but if you are on the channel for the first time, and have not seen it, I recommend that you first familiarize yourself with the first video. I'll leave the link in the description. And I will also ask you to subscribe to my channel and like this video to support me. The output of certain manga sequels depends solely on your activity. This is how I understand whether the truth is important or not. Are you ready for bloody chaos? So, get acquainted. This is Kirina's science, this is Kazuya Makina, and these are her former classmates. Despite the fact that Science is an extremely cute girl and Daily and Vessel, they were bullied with special cruelty. She was communicating with Kazuya at the same time, and they both had warm feelings for each other. But at the same time, Kazuya preferred to hang out with the bullers. Once in the past, bullying went too far, and with sulfuric acid hidden in a pumpkin mask for Halloween, the girls burned their face. After that, they were placed in a mental hospital. Science broke out of there and began to kill all the offenders, and even just those who turn up at hand. When two people, Naruto and Arata, remain alive, the father of the first, Mayor Donald Kuroki, intervenes in the case. I gave him the name. The advantage goes to the offenders. Then Naoka, with Kazuya realizing his love, and a dead schoolgirl and a prostitute, is thrown into the pit. Kazuya survived because he fell on an easily accessible schoolgirl. Science died because it ran into the protruding top of the rebar. After burying the girl, the guy went crazy, put on his belt, and became the next pumpkin for $300. He killed Naruto, and Donald Kuroki tore off the first head and danced with her on the roof until he was tied up and put in a mental hospital. The retelling of the first part ends with a cliffhanger that Naoka is still alive. And now let's find out how this story continued. The second part will begin, because Detective Matsui is digging an improvised grave on Okakirin. There can be no mistake. The girl was buried in this very place, but now her body is not here. This can only mean one thing. The original pumpkin is still alive. To match this conclusion, she herself appears from behind. After the prologue, we are transferred to another place in the car. There, a grandfather discharged from the hospital looks at a photo of his family. They work in a foreign branch of his company and have not seen each other for a very long time. His granddaughter really wants to visit him and writes to him every day. Grandfather thanks the technology with which he can communicate with his family even at a distance. His companion replies that all this is the merit of his grandfather himself, who invested a lot of effort in the development of the telecommunications business. The girl had just started congratulating him on his discharge when her head literally exploded. From the front seats, they ask what happened, and without realizing it, the grandfather, covered in blood, turns around and sees Pumpkin Knight approaching on a motorcycle with a shotgun in the window. The girl starts shooting at the car and kills the driver. The car skids, and it starts rushing right into the path of a real hydraulic hammer. The journey passes through the car like oil, dividing the head of the last remaining one along the way, not counting the grandfather. Holding his head, he asks how it happened, for what? And then Pumpkin Knight appears. Grandfather begs not to kill him. Pumpkin replies, nope, and shows him the phone. On the screen, there is a photo of a girl holding a small child in her arms. This mother and her child really want to meet you, so I'm going to have to send you to hell, she says. There are a lot of things they would like to ask you. For example, how many kilometers per hour did you survive that day? Why didn't you help the victims after the accident? Why was this not mentioned in the media? And one last thing, why haven't you been arrested? Seeing that she won't get any answers from her grandfather, Pumpkin turns the shotgun, showing the butt. Suddenly, 4 spikes burst out of that one. Under the screams, I will give up, just spare me, she brings it in and drives the stabbing right into her face. Then, they tell about the incident in the news right on the street. People are gossiping, they say she's at it again. Some people add that at least she only deals with criminals who escaped punishment in this way. And after that we return to Matsu, who is digging Naok's grave. When he sees that there is no one inside, Naoka herself appears behind him. Her face has been restored, there is no trace of burns. Turning around, the girl begins to run away. The detective ran after her. He tried to catch up with her, but immediately twisted his leg. Already at a slow pace, he continued his search, which led him to a huge mansion. Realizing that there is nothing more he can do, the detective turns around and leaves. Naoko looks after him from the window, asking out loud who he is. She clutches her head, saying that no matter how much she tries to remember, nothing works. Then another person enters the room. This is the doctor. He asks the patient not to torture herself. The memory will definitely return. After learning that someone was chasing science, the doctor asks, "Did the girl go outside?" When she confesses, he takes her by the shoulders and asks her to refrain from such dangerous actions. He admits that if something happens to science, he will no longer be able to live without it. The ward promises that he has not climbed another foot. The doctor notices something on her face: cyanosis. Artificial tissue is rejected. We'll have to do another operation. Naoko tries to calm him down, saying that she is not worried about the face because she is alive, and this is already a miracle. Then the girl pulls the old man to her and kisses him on the lips. Hugging her afterwards, the doctor remembers how he found her. He was walking his dog in the woods when a dying pumpkin crawled out of the bushes to him. We are transported to Detective Matsu. When he returned to the station, he found out that the doctor's name was Higa. He is 58 years old and a doctor of medical sciences. And a little later, the dishonest businessman rejoices at how easy it is to make money now. Just one phone call, and they themselves fall into their hands. Then the joy of the bandits interrupts the doorbell. Thinking that it is the police, they take out knives and prepare for an attack. They were attacked from behind. A machete vertically cut the head of the first one, and then a pumpkin appeared in the eye. But since they are illegals, there is nothing to be afraid of. A crowd of bandits will easily overcome an ordinary schoolgirl maniac. They rush at Pumpkin Knight, but she easily dodges every lunge, inflicting fatal wounds during a counterattack. The ranks of men are melting, and they all catch the panic that they will not be able to cope with it, and therefore rush to the exit. That's just another freak with a mask that says Bleach is waiting for them outside the door. Bleach immediately starts shooting with a shotgun, knocking out one bandit after another. There is only one left, which is enough for an eye by the hair. He tearfully admits that they bred suckers on the grandmother. But now everyone does it, so why were they extreme? Pumpkin answers, they would like to meet you, and shows the phone. There's a picture of the grandparents, whom he robbed to the skin, bringing both to the extreme. Pumpkin Knight is also interested in several questions. Why did he do it? What did he spend this money on? And whether he will continue. Bandos promises that he will not, and in general, if science spares him, he will forever tie up with crime. In response, someone knocks him in the face with his knee, and then begins to stamp on him with his foot. Taking off his mask, Higa thinks that science is incomparable, completely devoid of compassion, commits the purest violence. Parallel to these words, a pumpkin cleaver blows off half of the head of the last bandit. Higa found her a year ago. Numerous through wounds and massive blood loss, multiple bone fractures, ruptures of internal organs. They buried her half dead in a pit, but she struggled out with the last of her strength. After bringing her to his underground operating room, Higa made attempts to save her. Naoko, having been expelled from the medical community, secretly equipped his workspace. The operation lasted 10 hours. The doctor spared nothing and spent all his medicines on science. And all because the feeling did not leave him. This child will be able to carry out all his plans. Now, watching how he holds half of the bandit's head in his hands, he understands that his gut did not let him down then. Pumpkin has incredible physical strength, she is very aggressive, and she has no conscience at all. Plus, she has partial amnesia, which is only to his advantage. With her, he can purify this rotten world. And now Detective Matsui has come to the psychiatric hospital where the one who went from the last part is being held. They explain to him that Kazuya has withdrawn into himself and sits facing the wall all the time, not reacting to anything or anyone. From time to time, he engaged in self-harm, so in extreme cases, he was injected with tranquilizers. A tactical vegetable, but the detective still intends to talk to him. At first, zero reaction was expected from the guy, but then Gozi suddenly says, Kirin's science is alive. It works, Kazuya immediately asks again, smiling and letting out tears. Matsui then says she needs to be stopped. While everyone was distracted by the detective who came to himself and started shouting, call the main hearth here. Someone in the dark corridor is scribbling a text message with the contents of Kazuya Makin has just regained consciousness. And at the same time, having already returned back, Dr. Higa observes a model of the development of cyanosis in Naoko. There doesn't seem to be anything he can do. Her face will always return to its former appearance. Pumpkin is now on the street. She herself is not worried about her appearance. And then remembers how someone, but who exactly cannot remember, has already accepted her like this. The girl went into the forest again, thinking that if she wandered around here, she might remember something. Then she meets the detective again. He only managed to pay attention to the girl's appearance as Science released a needle from her sleeves and rushed to attack, scratching his face. The detective dodged the next lunges, but not for long, twisting his leg again. When Pumpkin is about to give him the last blow, Matsui shouts that Kazuya is waiting for her. Then he opens his eyes and sees that she hit nearby. She repeats the spoken name. Her head is immediately filled with lost memories. Kazuya is waiting for me, she repeats in tears. Pumpkin Night remembered everything. She remembered Kazuya, who had accepted her for who she was. Getting to her feet while the girl is crying, the detective thinks that most likely her memory has displaced painful memories. She went through a real hell, and in order not to go crazy, she had to forget everything. This is not surprising at all. When Kazuya at the hospital told him the full story of everything that happened to Naoko, Detective Matsui was speechless. Naoka interrupts his thoughts by asking where Kazuya is now. He replies that everything is fine with him. He's in a psychiatric hospital right now. Then, with concern on his face, Pumpkin grabs his hand, asking which one, guessing that the guy is in the Hiroyama hospital. Kazuya himself is in his room right now. He really seems to be getting better. Thanks to the doctor, his beloved is alive, and now continues to cleanse the world of scum. He laughs, saying that this is expected. Science is still crazy. What a blessing that she is alive. The door to the ward opens, and big guys dressed as medical staff come inside. Someone else comes in after them, saying, "Well, Cockerel, you're up to your ears in shit, it's annoying. That I didn't talk to that detective, but it's okay, I've already returned to Japan." Seeing in front of him the woman who runs this hospital, recognizing Naruto in her, Kazuya realizes that in front of him is the mother of a murdered classmate. Matsui and Naoka are also talking about this now. The first one finds out that the chief director of the psychiatric hospital is Masaya Kuroki. Pumpkin knows for sure because she herself was lying in the same. From morning to night, she was constantly tied up and injected with neuroleptics and tranquilizers. This made the girl a vegetable who didn't think anything. She just lay day after day on the shit and urine-soaked floor. One of these times, a woman came to check, and just a glance at her face was enough to understand that Science would rot in this place in captivity. Matsui realizes that by showing up at that hospital, he inadvertently gave out Kuroki's information that Kirin's Science is still alive. He picks up the phone, intending to call for backup, but then his palm, and the phone itself, is pierced by a needle, which immediately nailed his hand to a tree. Naoka immediately started running. After a while, Dr. Higa heard the roar of a motorcycle and immediately rushed to the source of the sound. In the garage, he met Pumpkin Night preparing to leave and immediately forbids her to leave the mansion. "You belong to me, Naoka," he shouts. "God sent you to me to help cleanse this world of dirt. You are a Snow White angel of destruction." "Snow White?" Naoka asks again. "You're wrong. I'm an invincible pumpkin that hides in the dark and destroys those who hide in the rays of light." The doctor realizes that the patient's memories have returned. She bluntly says that she is going to save Kazuya, and then rushes straight at him, knocking down her savior and leaving him behind. Resolutely leaving the mansion, falling under the field of view of others, she leaves in the direction of the psychiatric hospital. Higa follows her out and watches her go. He thinks he tried to tame her for nothing. He asks her to go and paint this world in a color that is cleaner than white. Kazuya, meanwhile, grabs hard from the orderlies. They are already exhausted, noticing that their prey is stubborn. They've been beating him for an hour, and he hasn't even squeaked. Hearing this, the victim begins to grin. "Poor devils," he says. "You're all going to die. Pumpkin Night will release everyone's guts." Not understanding what it's about and what kind of Pumpkin Night it is, they ask the boss. She says that last year this guy was talked about in the news. He burned her husband, Mayor Kuroki, in the car, and then cut off his son's head and danced with her on the roof. They immediately recall this character. That won't do. It's a murky business, and they don't want to participate in it, but it's too late to merge. While they are sorting it out, Kazuya turns to one of the slaves, calling him nosy. When he bends down to listen to him, the one who went bites his teeth, knocks him down, and bites off his nose. Everyone is watching this picture in horror, except Kuroki, who says only one word: amazing. And here's what's happening outside. A sleepy security guard was patrolling the territory when a bike came out to meet him. Rising on top of him, Pumpkin Knight jumped up and first knocked him over with her foot, and then, standing on his face, drove on the asphalt. Looking around the hospital, Pumpkin smiles. Her beloved Kazuya is here, and she feels it. After recovering, the guard immediately informed the others. Kirin's science is here. Coming closer, Pumpkin Knight says that she remembers this person. That bastard among the guards treated her worse than the others, didn't miss a single opportunity to touch her. What a pity that he wasn't on shift when she ran away, but at least she can close this gestalt now. The guard pulls out a baton and swings at the girl. She dodges, but has not yet counterattacked, allowing him to beat the air. When she happily went behind his back and said that it was not so easy to touch him now, he hit her on the leg with his heel. It hurts her, because realizing that Pumpkin Knight has lost her vigilance, the guard swings a baton. But it wasn't there. Blades jump out of the girl's bat shoe, which immediately wounded his leg. When she pulled the gun back out, the opponent dropped to one knee. Then the same weapon was at his neck, and with it she cut off half of his head, from chin to crown. One is ready, but there is still an army of orderlies on the way. They're going to fly head-on. But then someone watching the news reminds me that Pumpkin Knight walks with a shotgun. In the first victim, this reminder is unnecessary. The shot has already hit in the face. Then they began to fall one by one. Pumpkin slowly goes towards shooting at enemies. With all this, doctors and Madame Kuroki are watching from the roof. One of them demands to call the police, but the chief director is against it. Kirin's science came to them by itself, and they know its weaknesses. Inside, she is fragile and weak, and will not be able to forget the program according to which she was trained. Pumpkin just realized that she had shot all her cartridges. It seems that she was too carried away, but the main forces of the enemy are laid. So she jumps to the entrance of the hospital, where she meets a bound woman with a mutilated face. This is a certain doctor, Ayumi, from the sight of which Pumpkin Knight falls into a stupor. The first one asks the girl not to approach, and then tells her to run away from here. But no, seeing her, Science falls to her knees and begins to cry. Then more orderlies come out from behind, surround the girl, and press her to the floor. The doctors come down and notice that the pumpkin quickly calmed down after the injection, and then they ask who it is. Madame Kuroki presents. Ayumi is a former clinical psychologist who worked with Science and who sabotaged her treatment. As a bonus to this, Ayumi helped her ward plan an escape. That's why she made her face like that. Doctor, Ayumi shouts at the director to stop talking nonsense. Rehabilitation, fiction. In the coffin, she has seen such treatment, which is comparable only to a lobotomy. In response, Kuroki says that she also liked what was happening. She was pleased to have a slave at her side who would carry out any order. While Pumpkin Knight is being carried away, Doctor, Ayumi tearfully asks to be checked. The caught woman was brought to the already familiar room, the rehabilitation room, where she had already passed the program. Madame Kuroki promises that this time she will personally take care of her ward. But such threats do not frighten Science. Pulling on a mask of madness, she says she can't wait. When the second round of the program begins, the torture began. Watching, the director of the hospital is trying to understand why Science does not scream in pain. When even grown men start screaming from such tension, the current supply stops. Another doctor explains that they have been beating him for 2 hours, a little more, and the pumpkin will give up so much. In addition, the devices do not record any reaction. Peripheral pulse, heart rate, or electrical activity of the brain are all normal. Moreover, it seems that she is not just not afraid, but she is having fun at all from what is happening. That everything is already being voiced by Pumpkin. Is the electric massage over? Hurry up, I need more. Madame Kuroki smiles. That's it. The girl can easily withstand any pain. Then she demands to bring her honey. It's time to see how the girl will cope with a cheerful psychostimulant. And while the torture continues, in his room, Dr. Ayumi in his thoughts asks Science to continue to fight. She must not give up, for she is not a human being, but the invincible Pumpkin Knight, messenger of hell. And that's pretty much what Dr. Higa is saying to Detective Matsui right now. According to him, the found one had been lying in that grave for 4 days before crawling out, and yet she was still alive. After he saved her, he decided to Google about Pumpkin Knight and found out that Naoko had gained a lot of popularity. Details of her case and even a video of Kuroki's torture surfaced. I haven't seen anything like that. but this is because it was necessary to search in the darknet. The detective hears about this for the first time, so he is given a little base. Then, looking like Frankenstein's monster, he asks who needs information about science in the darknet at all. And then the grandfather gives out, "I fell in love with her. The whole world fell in love with the science of Kirin. In short, she won the hearts of all the inhabitants of the dark side of the internet because she was not broken by the system. And she brought her revenge to the end." Matsui was horrified by what he heard. A brilliant doctor, unrecognized and rejected by his colleagues, returned to the eye, from the depths of hell. A subordinate interrupts him from thinking. Judging by his frowning face, Tan did not manage to get into a mental hospital. But he found out that shooting was now heard on the premises of the institution. The detective is trying to figure out what to do, and then something comes to mind. With the words, "If the usual methods do not work, then I will use the ace up my sleeve," he suddenly runs away. If the criminals have all fallen in love with science from the darknet, then this is only to his advantage. In the hospital, science was led to another device. At the same time, Dr. Aomi thinks that all these things are meaningless. She knows because she's already tried them all. Having done a brain tomography, the doctors are shocked. There are no anomalies at all. Then they decide to increase the output signal as the girl is somehow released. Having nailed his hand with the door of the device, Pumpkin Knight drives a medical tripod into this person's throat, to which droppers are usually attached. After killing one unnecessarily brutally, she pulls out the second part of the same gun and throws it through the glass, and then gets into the head of one of the doctors. "You've had enough. Now it's my turn," she says to the last remaining one, climbing through the window. At the same time, and in the same building, Madame Kuroki is trying to find out from Ayumi if she has done something. Why science obeys only her. Izorodo Van Eyre replies that she did not train the girl, she just taught her one simple word. And this word is hope. We get a short flashback. There, Dr. Aomi shows the patient a picture of Kazuya. She endured all the pain and did not show her true feelings to anyone, but gave free rein to emotions. As soon as the doctor showed a picture of this guy, then the only normal person decided to make sure for sure who was behind everything, who burned his face to the eye and erased it. All traces of that incident, and what else is there with Kazuya? Does he feel guilty, and how does he live at all after everything that happened? The chief director understands that Ayumi blabbed it all on the eye, giving it all as a setup. Until the rehabilitation program in quotes was finished. "Do you understand what you've done?" she asks. "Yes," Ayumi answers. "What befits a doctor? I gave this girl hope for life." The dialogue is interrupted by a phone call. One of the employees reports that science has gone berserk. To match this, we see Pumpkin banging the door handle with a fire extinguisher and shouts for the medical staff to open it. She's locked in the control room right now, but she's about to break out. They need help. And Yumi says that Naoka is out of control, so they're all finished. Kuroki replies that then she uses it. And immediately the first one is seized with panic. After calling someone, the chief director demands to release the baby. And at the same time, Science managed to escape into the corridor to the doctors who were waiting for her appearance. Well, now everyone has been kicked in the heels, but they can't run far. The corridors were immediately closed with iron shutters. Another door opens, and the pumpkins appear behind him. There is a bully dressed as a baby who cries and sucks his thumb. The doctors left inside begin to goad the giant so that the baby smears the girl. "That's your name," the kid turns to him on the eye. "Mom gave you that name." Hearing the word mom, the giant begins to turn his head to the right, asking where she is. Then Pumpkin Knight informs that she is his mother. He hugs her, and the girl also imitates tears when she hears the words from the doctor. She's an imposter. The kid intends to punish the offenders of the false mother and rushes straight at them. With one blow of his fist, he just exploded. The second one died because the first one flew into it. Two more ran in the other direction. Two giant hands squeezed between them, caught their heads, scraped along the walls, and hit each other. After which massive palms squeezed them. Seeing this tin, Science understands that something is wrong here. It doesn't look like it's just a patient who escaped from the ward. Watching the expression on the girl's face, Madame Kuroki says that she understood everything correctly. The kid is an unusual patient. Thanks to that very program, and a special method of treatment, his strength has increased many times. He is the first Superman. He's not a patient, and he didn't run away from anywhere. Realizing this, Pumpkin begins to smile. Then, slipping between his legs, she ran deep into the corridor, straight to the shutters. The giant, of course, is behind her. Having reached almost to the partition itself, the girl abruptly jumps sideways. The very place where the baby crashes with all his weight. The blinds are bent but not broken. The kid asks why mom is running away, and is she really his mom at all? Science answers this with 2 facts and the question, what kind of mother am I to you? In other words, she agitates the giant, and he, having burst into tears even more, attacks harder. Pumpkin dodges, and the massive fist bends the partition again. Seeing the result, Science continues to troll the giant. He strikes a whole series of blows. The heroine evades everyone. Observing the amazing reaction and acrobatics from the side, Madame Kuroki asks what? A girl like that? And while this is happening, Matsu outside and in the car shared with a subordinate that they were going to the hacker. He has one guy in mind. Even as a 3rd grader, he calmly hacked into bank protection. So it would be nice if the guy accidentally hacks the servers of the psychiatric hospital. The assistant is against it because the police don't work like that. This type is muddy, and it seems like a minor at all. Matsu notices that this whole Pumpkin Night story is muddy, and cruel methods are needed here. The hacker will not refuse to help, because all that is required is to give him a name in front of OK. After all, it is absolutely in the criminal world. The police drive up to a rich mansion. After getting out of the car and standing in front of the camera, the detective asks Yuki to open it for him, and then adds for confidence that he has fresh information about Kirin's science. However, a voice is heard from the speakers, and then the door opens. After leaving the territory, they pass into the garden. At the entrance to the house, they are met by a familiar shadow, Pumpkin Knight, which immediately rushes with a knife to the car, jumps on the hood, and starts aiming at the window with a knife. Calmly getting out of the car, Matsu tells Yuko what it is. Too much already. Cosplayer draws attention to the detective's injury, and when the second one replies that she tried for an eye, the pseudo-speaker asks, is the girl still alive? Upon learning the wonderful news, Yuki immediately grabs the detective's hand and starts rubbing against it and trying to lick it. Matsui pushes the hacker away with his foot, and after asking where the pumpkin is, he answers that Science is now in the hospital, trying to save Kazuya's lover. Having shed tears, cosplayer removes the pumpkin mask. He let the detective in, and Matsui shared everything he knew. As they walk, the assistant notices that there are only pictures of Science on the walls. His boss also notices that there are photos here that were only on police servers. Yuki won't deny it, he's a hacker, so it was to be expected that he would hack them. He also adds that the police are very strange. The case is high profile, there is no end to the corpse, and Science is still not caught. There is definitely some mystery hovering around the pumpkin. The cosplayer has such a nose. Matsui asks to help the police with this case. Yuki responds with a knife thrust that stopped at his throat, but then agrees. In the meantime, we return to the Science of Kirin, who dodges every blow of the baby. The doctors are shocked to discuss how she manages it. Madame Kuroki recalls the dialogue with Iumi. The girl's program was interrupted, so what gave her such power then? Meanwhile, with one powerful blow, the giant removed the partition so that a gap appeared from below. Pumpkin tries to get into it, but then a blow flies into his back, followed by another. Naruto's mother smiles, thinking that this is the end. And in a pumpkin night, completely filled with merch, hacking is now taking place in the hacker's room. The cosplayer does his best to pretend that it's all incredibly complicated, and the hospital has some kind of super mega G ultra protection. Matsui asks to stop breaking the comedy, because he probably already hacked everything. He commands you to quickly find him on the eye. Yuki suddenly smiles and says, "You care so much about her. You've probably already fallen in love with Paul yourself." In response, he gets a menacing look and a command to get to work quickly. And while he's looking, Karen's Science keeps getting stabbed in the back. When the girl loses her strength, the giant grabs her leg, pulls her back, and lifts her up. His other hand grabs the pumpkin's face, preparing to crush it, but the victim suddenly says, "It hurts me, Shinga." "Shinga, don't torture mom," she continues. The baby stops, calls her mom again, and hugs her. Madame Kuroki doesn't understand how Pumpkin Knight found out the real name of their test subject. After all, only his real mother, who has been dead for a long time, called him by name. And while the giant is apologizing to his mother, the Science of the Guide for the Dead reaches the director of the psychiatric hospital. That's why neuroscience and psychology were powerless. At the same time, Pumpkin continues to hug the baby, turns to the camera, and asks with a smile, "Broke off, right?" And then he hugs the giant and calls him dear son. Madame Kuroki thinks the power of Pumpkin Night is to keep in touch with the dead. Only the anti-scientific occultism she lacked here. And then suddenly we are transported to Dr. Higa, who tells the police by ear that science has experienced near-death experiences. Being buried with severe fatal wounds, she was able to get out of the grave. Seeing her, he understood that this girl's case was hopeless. However, over time, he realized that everything was wrong. All the time that science has been in the grave, it has been dead. She actually died and then came to life. He is asked what this has to do with a series of murders. And the old man answers, direct. The science that survived the near-death experience became a guide for the dead. There are few voices of the dead who harbored resentment or malice and then took revenge. And then he himself began to hope that he could use the girl to purify the world. And now we're back in the psych ward. Shinga broke the barrier. Madame demands to start the gas, but the doctors are doubtful. There's still a kid there, you can't lose such a sample. Naruto's mother shrugs off, saying that survival is now a priority. The gas is coming down, but for some reason it's not there. He himself began to fill the room with our scoundrels. Our hacker did it all. Science goes to where Kazuya is supposed to be, when suddenly it starts to fall. It seems that her son has already beaten off her entire lower back. The giant picked up Mom, and then put her on his shoulder. Just as they decided to go on, the light suddenly went out in the corridor. Shinga was already starting to panic, when suddenly one lamp lit up, then the next, and so on, going somewhere in. Pumpkin understands that someone is showing her the direction in this way. And in the control room, the doctors are happy that the gas is no longer coming, and Madame Kuroki is nervous, realizing that the light shows the direction to Kazuya's room. She gets creepy when she realizes that spirits help Pumpkin Night. Yuki is laughing at this time because it's his handiwork. Matsui demands to slow down, God forbid, someone will notice that they hacked them. Cosplayer loses heart, hates being yelled at. Immediately motivation is at zero. But he just wanted to give the police some new valuable information. After all, he had just found out that the hospital had a very valuable secret. And while Shinga breaks another cage, the medical staff rushes to the leak, but the baby suddenly freezes. This crying science has given a stop signal. Kazuya comes out from the opposite side of the corridor. And after we see the released one, the author takes us to the hacker's house. There, the cosplayer has just reported that super soldiers are being created in this hospital by suggestion and the use of medicines. All of this belongs to the Kuroki Corporation, and that's why any investigations were cancelled. The full rehabilitation program turned out to be too perfect. Any individual turned into a ferocious and obedient murder weapon, which eventually aroused the interest of the military. And then we come back to Kazuya. The one who went shows the big man and brothers the severed head of their bro. Horrified, watching this picture, Science asks, "Is it true, Kazuya?" Seeing this kid, even Shin gets scared. In the meantime, the nurses decided to pull themselves together. Then they notice that there is another body of their friend behind the door. And the fear is already turning into aggression. They are ready to attack Kazu for the death of their homies. Remembering how much fun it was to play with them, the beloved knockoff throws off his hands and laughs. And then he attacks. First, he kills one with the severed head that he held in his hand, and then flies up to the ceiling and attacks the second, smashing his head all over his body. The same tool. When the second one falls on the third one, Kazuya comes closer with a maniacal smile, raises and breaks his hand on his knee. After which he pulls it out. Naoko realizes that this is both her Kazuya and not him. The guy was timid and cowardly, and in front of her now brutalized. A maniac. While the lover tears the jaw of the last nurse with his bare hands, Pumpkin realizes that her beloved Kazuya has disappeared. Madame Kuroki confirms her thoughts. This is not the old Kazuya Makina. While Naoko was dead, he changed and became the next Pumpkin Night. Well, says Naruto's mother, show us the damn secrets of Pumpkin Night. Kazuya Makina, having finished off the last victim, turned towards Shin and Naoko. The end of the second part. Before we go any further, I remind you that the manga is in ongoing. There is also enough material for the third part. But to do it or not, as always, it's up to you. Write in the comments whether the truth is needed or not. Well, as for the manga itself, to be honest, it seems as if it is becoming less and less interesting. I expected literally anything from Masaya, because he is such an author, so the entanglement of occultism. It didn't surprise me at all. He is loved just the same for such madness, and here, as always, he is devoted to himself. However, despite the fact that I was waiting for the author to slowly begin to slide from the story of revenge into something like this, I still seem to be a little disappointed. And mostly just because this whole thing with the mental hospital seems to be delayed. At the very beginning, we had specific goals for killing and a firm motivation. It was all over, and Pumpkin became the spirit of vengeance. Now there is no less firm motivation to save her lover, but the last one from the Kuroki family has a specific goal. And even then, it's not much of a priority right now. Violence is very graphically drawn, sometimes even too absurd, like, for example, blowing up a head with a blow of another head. However, at the same time, unlike other mangaka works, the level of fun from the ongoing Torsionina seems to be getting lower and lower. The same murderous metamorphoses were read much more cheerfully. And here the same impression is created as when reading Crucifixion 6, it was necessary to finish the manga after the first arch. And even more so this one, because one of the main highlights of this story is the atmosphere of Halloween disappears. At first everything seemed organic, the annual celebration, the pumpkin mask as a symbol of revenge, Halloween night at the climax. And now it's just like the name of some superhero or villain. The drawing is not Gucci all the same beautiful, but the panzu shots seem to have become even more. Moreover, the emphasis on underpants on the eye has become even stronger. He can literally dedicate individual frames to her. As I said in the last part, I have nothing against it, but in the context of a story where a girl takes revenge for having her face burned, beaten every day at school, and then bullied by a psychiatric hospital. As for me, this is superfluous. Plus, I don't like that the beginning of this part began to be served with the rhetoric of science kills only the bad. If it continues to be served only from the position of observers who do not have full information, then okay. But it's too late for Masaya to try to overpower her image. Yes, the girl has suffered a lot, but she has already killed a lot of innocent people. That taxi driver, that doctors. As for the silly moments, there are surprisingly few of them too. There are naive ones, there are controversial ones, but clearly stupid for me. There was only one moment when science convinced Ching that she was his mother. Then she began to agitate him on herself. They say she deceived him. And when I got my ass kicked, I started building a mom again. One could say that the author decided to develop the branch along one path. Science has decided to proceed without the baby. And then he thought and decided that it would be easier together and changed his shoes on the go. But no, Taniguchi himself wrote that Masaya had already finished the original script a long time ago. And this postscript was in these volumes. In the end, what happens? The story is still not bad, but it doesn't seem to be so funny anymore. The continuation feels as if it is not really needed at all. I continue to read anyway, but to do the truth or not, I will wait for feedback from you. Write in the comments how you like the second part and whether you need the third. Thank you for liking and subscribing to the channel if you have registered it. And that's it for today. Thank you all for your attention. I love everyone, and bye to everyone.